everybody. Let me know if you guys hear me okay. Sorry for the delay. I was having a technical difficulty over here. Let's see if we're on. See, we got Kelly, we got Kim, we got Mike. If one of you could let me know if you hear me okay, that would be great. We're going to do introduction to phase 2 today, or tonight. Microphone check. So I'll do this. Live classroom on here. Okay, I see myself on here. Okay. Okay. So let me know if you hear me and see me okay. Just need a check from one person. We'll get started. No? Oh, can't hear me? Let's audio and vid, good to go. Let's see. Yeah, try refreshing mic. All right, so Kim hear me's okay. Audio. Problem with audio? Let me see. Check, check, check. Audio. Oh, I see. Spelled it wrong. Audio's okay. I had a few difficulties getting everything up and running. Just want to make sure everything's good. Sound good. Let's see, Dave's typing. No, all's good? Okay. Everything's good? Okay. I'll get started. Let's see what we got. All right, so we're gonna do an intro to phase 2 tonight. So I'll pop open the big screen. We're back in training area 51 again tonight. Got Darcy with me. So we're going to jump into phase 2 training tonight. It's an introduction. So what we're going to cover is the main concepts of phase 2 training. So to give you an idea, let's see. I'm going to go our phase 2 training. We're going to go, now I see in here. Okay, great, Mike. Sorry about that. I'm sorry for the delay tonight. I was having trouble connecting the camera. Just didn't want to connect. So the camera connects wirelessly. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to basically go over what these terms are in phase 2 training. So we did phase 1 training last stream. This stream we're going to go over the phase 2 and the main concepts behind it. All right. Okay. And so we're going to go over escape condition, condition punisher, and avoidance conditioning in phase 2. If anyone is watching this stream for the first time, be sure to know where to find everything. All right, we have our live classroom is over here. This is where we're at, but if you go to the little cross, you could drop this down, and where everyone should start if they're new is just Introduction to Foundation Style Training, and then go right down in order. Although this stream will be easy for anyone to follow, you know, you're going to get the most from the training if you start from the beginning and you get your foundation. Especially you don't want to do any of these concepts if you don't do phase 1 training. So a little recap from last stream is our phase 1 training is where we're teaching the dog new behaviors, and we're only working with positive reinforcement and negative punishment. That's all that we're going to be doing. And we want to learn all those concepts there. You do not want to do phase 2 training for any exercise unless you did the phase 1. Ideally, especially if you're just starting off, and it's the way that I do it if I'm teaching someone new. You will see experienced trainers can kind of do a lot of these things at the same time if they know what they're doing. You can sort of jump around, and we can kind of go over that at a later time. What we're going to do is we're just going to go over concepts. I have Darcy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch. I'm going to give my phone to Judy so she could control the camera. I'm going to take Darcy. So we got Darcy here tonight. And I'm going to go over step by step now. Now, phase 2 training consists of 3 things: escape conditioning, the condition punisher, and avoidance conditioning. All right. The first part is escape conditioning. So escape conditioning, it is a term that you can find in applied behavior analysis. Basically what it is, it's going to be the process. It's going to be the process of teaching an animal, a person, or whatever, how to escape punishment. Generally how to escape some sort of aversive. Mostly what we are concentrating on, actually what it is concentrating on, is the concept of negative reinforcement. Now, negative reinforcement, if you've learned your operant conditioning, it's basically to remove something to encourage a behavior. Now, escape conditioning is not the same thing as negative reinforcement. Escape conditioning is the whole process that you use in order to teach that one piece of negative reinforcement part of the training plan. So that is what you are working on when you're doing the escape conditioning part of the training. So it'll be easier for me to sort of demonstrate while I'll explain. You could take any exercise, right? Like we can take leash manners, right? So I have Darcy. If I was technically doing pure phase 1 training, if she's pulling on the leash, there is not going to be any type of punishment. There's not going to be any type of aversive. Well, the only punishment she would get is negative punishment. So suppose I was giving her rewards for staying close. The only punishment she would get is negative punishment, the removal of something to discourage. But when she's on a loose leash next to me, right, I can give her love. I can give her treats, right? You want to see if you could close that in a little bit closer, me in the box? Thank you. We're just going to close in the camera a bit more, get a little bit of close-up. All right. We're going to do with, so that is pure phase 1, all right? I'm keeping her here. She's mostly staying on the loose leash right now because it's better to be here than out there. Now keep in mind, we're in a closed training room, all right? There's nothing going on. So there's really not much going on out there anyway. But I'm going to give her treats. I'm going to give her love. She steps out there, it all goes away. That is pure phase 1. Now remember what we spoke about with establishing operations, right? I'm establishing operations in this training room. Usually when I start, almost every time I start training a dog, I always consider the environment so that I know what I'm going to use to motivate is going to be it's going to work better. So that's why I always start training in an environment that there's not much going on. And just without even using any type of punishment, Darcy, good girl, I could walk around with her, and if she's far away from me, she just doesn't get anything. If she's close on a loose leash, she's going to get love and she's going to get rewards. When she's far away, she's not. Good girl. Pure phase 1 training. She's out there, nothing. Good girl, good girl. Now, when you're training a dog, you got to remember, I'm explaining to you as I'm teaching. You want to stay connected to that dog. And I cannot stress enough how much you can get accomplished with just phase 1 training. Right, Darcy? Sit. Good girl. All right, this is all from last stream. It's all love. It's all love and treats. All right? Now, unless I have a dog that understands all those concepts for a particular exercise, I'm not going to do phase 2 training. Now, Darcy, she has on, good girl, she has a star mark collar on right now. Let me see, I'm going to go grab one. I have one on the side. All right. This is a larger version of one that I have here. All right. Star mark collar is just like, almost like a plastic version of a prong collar. You don't need to use one of these for phase 2 training. You can use anything for phase 2 training. What's that? I mean, technically, you could do phase 2 training with the buckle collar. But you choose the tools. You know, the tools are for a different stream. You know, you choose the tools based off of what's going to be safest for the dog, and you could use the least amount of force with getting the best results. You know, you don't want the dog to go into a panic. I like the star mark collar for a lot of dogs only because they're very safe for the dog's neck. On a buckle collar, if I use it for an aversive, all the force is going to be blunt and it's all going to be on one side of the neck, right? With something like a star mark collar, if I pull on this thing, if I use it, this hugs evenly around my arm or around the dog's neck. So the force gets distributed evenly. So it's safer. And then these plastic points, which are actually really blunt, you know, it doesn't really hurt at all. I mean, it's just uncomfortable enough where you can get some movement from the dog, you know. You're looking to do something that the dog would rather not have, that they're going to escape. And I like the star mark, I say, for most dogs. Now, escape conditioning, it's a process. So you're teaching them what it's about. Now, she has one on, right? Now, it is possible if you have a dog and you just throw this thing on them and they hit the end of the leash, it is possible for a dog to panic if they're very sensitive. They're a very soft dog, right? They don't know what it's about. So escape conditioning, what you're trying to do is show the dog how to escape that, all right? Negative reinforcement. You want to show them how to remove it to encourage a behavior. So an example of how phase 2 would work is she already knows how to stay here next to me. You know, she gets a lot of love. I may, when I'm in an environment like this, not with distractions, not with her pulling all over the place because there's a major distraction, all I'm going to do is I will artificially put a little bit of pressure on the leash and then, good girl, and then I will sort of pump it. I will pump it. We're not going over the mechanics, you know, yet today. These are just concepts. I'm going to pump it, good girl, and I'm going to encourage her to show her how to escape it. And this is one of the first things I do with escape conditioning is I just teach them how to get rid of the punishment, you know, or the aversive of a collar just on leash manners. Like I said, this could be a no-pull harness you're using. This could be a halty type of collar. It does not really matter. You know, you're just looking for something you feel comfortable with, that you feel is safe with the dog. So I move away, I pump it, she comes closer, I love her. If she was going to panic for some reason, good girl, if she was going to panic, I would go down, you could take a treat out, you could do anything you want to encourage the dog to come closer to you. But it is so easy when you establish operations, all right? Now through this, this isn't really a leash manners lesson, I can use a star mark collar to at least teach her when this is horizontal and I pump, good girl, she's going to move with it. She's learning how to escape it, good girl. Notice I'm still doing my positive reinforcement. I'm still going to give her treats. You do not abandon phase one. It is still a phase one lesson, and I'm just adding escape conditioning. I'm teaching her what to do to get rid of it, all right? That is escape conditioning. Good girl. You are a good girl, all right? It's very easy. Good girl, all right? Now, this same concept could also be for like a sit or a down or anything else. Now, anytime that you're doing escape conditioning, you want to make it as easy for the dog as possible by starting with the dog in where they're supposed to be, in the correct spot. So here, if she's on leash manners, I have a dog that already understands leash manners. And I may even be hooked up to her buckle collar first and make sure she settles in to this position. You know, she settles into this position, and before I switch her over to the training collar. Like that. All right. Good girl. All right. And then I would do it. Now, if I was doing escape conditioning for a sit, I would have the dog in a sit first. All right. I would have her in a sit first, and then I would teach her what the aversive is for the sit. In this case, the star mark collar. All right. So here, if she was in the sit, and I wanted to make it easier for her to learn how to escape it, you start them off in the position, so when she does get out, you can add whatever the aversive is, which is basically going to be a little pressure, and I just kind of pump with a finger. See, she gets off, I pump, she goes back in, good girl, and I love her up. All right. This is escape conditioning. All right. Darcy, free, good girl. You keep with a phase one training. You continue with phase one training. Darcy, sit. Good girl. I'm going to make sure she's in it first. You put it in her first in the position, and then I'm going to wait for her to break. And you always want to stay close as possible to make it easy. A lot of times I get right on the floor with the dog. I get as close as possible so that it's easier to put them back in when they do break. She's so smart. She did some of this at one of the students. So we're not going to be able to trick her. You see? Pump, pump, good girl. We're showing her how to get out of it, how to put back in it. Now, I would not move to the next step of escape conditioning unless, Darcy, free, I saw she was getting into it very easy when she's in the position. All right? The next stage of phase two training would be she's actually completely out of position in a stand. When she's in the stand now, I would apply the aversive. Right, I'm going to pump, pump. Good girl, she's going to do it. Good girl, and then I love her up when she goes in. It is told she's being actually too good about this. Darcy, free. I need a less trained dog. So it is normal for you to pump, the dog not know what to do, and you can give them a little help, good girl, to make sure they know how to get out of it. And then I continue phase one training, whatever we're doing, all right? So phase one, for escape conditioning, it always starts with the dog in the position. We could do the same thing with the down, all right? I put her in a down, good girl. Once she's in the down, I'm going to put my hand, I say this isn't a mechanics video, but I will make it very easy that when she goes to get up, to do the aversive and make it easier for her to figure out how to escape that correction. And these are in the Teresa videos too. She's using a halty collar, and even some of our older videos with the prong collar. Good girl. She's going to be here, and I'll try to even trick her to get up. She's not going to. There we go. I'm going to pump, pump, pump. Good girl. Good girl. Now these are meant to be unfair. Darcy, free. Not unfair as in the goal is you need the dog to mess up in order to teach them. And you're making it as easy as possible for the dog. So her, I'll do another down, all right? Darcy, down, down, good girl. She goes into the down. I slide down here. I have my hand in a position. I'm going to give her love. I'm always going to talk nice to her. You are a good girl. And then if she gets up, if you can't get any, sometimes you need someone to help with a distraction. I think Judy's going to move around. You want to move around, distract her a bit? You can come over here. All right. There we go. She gets up, I pump, I help her back into the down. All right. This is considered escape conditioning. We're teaching punishment. We're teaching what it's about. Good girl. Darcy, free. Good girl. All right. Now, if the dog, once the dog learns, does not have trouble from there, I would do the same thing in my regular lessons, Darcy, by just putting them in, all right? I'll actually just start off by pumping, good girl, and see if she goes down, all right? Good girl, which she does. If they do not know the punishment for a command, you don't ever want to teach them how to avoid the punishment. Now, another reason why we do phase 1 first is, of course, you need them to know what this command is. What are you doing? But you can use the command to help them go into the down. Like, for instance, with the sit, I don't think she'll do this. If I tell her to sit from here, if she does not go into the sit, oh, of course she's going to. You can call me a liar. If she didn't go into the sit, I can pump, and then I can tell her sit calmly to help her. But here, too, watch, I'm going to pump first. She's going to go down. Good girl. She's learning the commands. I'm going to pump up. She's going to do it. Good girl. Good girl. You could blame Cameron, a student from last year. I guess he did more work than I give him credit for. Pump. Good girl. The pump is actually like a command. You say, I'm pumping her, and then she goes up. You got to teach us. This is all escape conditioning. Good girl. So I'm not even giving her any command. I'm just making sure she knows what to do with these. All right. I'm going to pump, bring her closer to me. She knows this pretty good. You could even pump towards. I'm actually controlling her with the pumps. Now, if you notice, even though it's technically punishment, since you're not being harsh, it's uncomfortable, but they sort of see it as it becomes almost like a nonverbal command. It is a nonverbal command. And when I do group classes, I will do drills where I even have people like close their eyes, not say a word to their dog, and I'll say just by giving them signals on the leash, have them go into a down, right? And they'll just squat, and they'll pump like that, and the dog goes into the down, and then they'll love their dog. Go back into the sit, all right? They could do anything, all right? Get the dog into the heel. So I'm giving her no commands. I'm using these pumps. So it's all about escape, 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 all right? Now, there is 2 more parts of phase 2 training. You're actually building these little pieces for the dog to understand, to build the complete dog. So now she understands these pumps, but you do also want to make sure she knows how to avoid them altogether. And there's 2 ways you really do that. All right. One of them is using a conditioned punisher. All right. Conditioned punisher is basically it's using classical conditioning. So the quick short version of classical conditioning, right? Pavlov's dogs. If anyone has researched Ivan Pavlov and classical conditioning, what did he do? He took a bell, which really meant nothing to the dog, and he kept pairing it up with food until when he rang the bell, the dog responded the same way to the bell as it did the food. It responded to food by getting excited and salivating when it would see the food. After a while, you'd ring the bell, they expected the food, so they would start to salivate. So the conditioned punishers were actually going to condition the dog to react the same way to a verbal or any other sort of cue as they would to an actual punishment. Therefore, you do not have to give an actual punishment to the dog. Darcy, good girl. Do we have an extra small link for her over there? Do you know? Oh, we do? Good. Just gonna add extra link. Star mark's a little tight. Darcy, sit. Good girl. You always want to make sure, whatever collar you're using, that it's comfortable for the dog. Because then if they get if it's a little too tight and it's always uncomfortable, then it's not going to be as much contrast to the dog, that everything's comfortable and then uncomfortable. And some of these collars, it's tricky. Like sometimes it's a little too loose, and sometimes it's a little too tight. So I just loosen that up on her. Good girl. All right, good girl. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to teach her, before I pump, I'm just going to say the word no. Now here is where it is a little bit more fair to her. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give her commands. Like I'm going to do a climb. Darcy, climb. Good girl. I'm going to give her her treats. All right. And if she breaks, I am not just going to do the escape conditioning. I'm going to say the word no clearly first before I go into position to pump her. I'm not going to say no and pump her at the same time. All right? I'm going to say no, then pump her. And I tell her what she should be doing at the same time. Now what this does is we want to make sure she knows that no is followed by punishment. Just like the bell was followed by food. You do not want to do it at the same time. So let's see, I'm going to try to break, get her to break. Let's say, no, climb. That's how I do it. Good girl. All right. We'll see if she breaks. If you want to distract her, she's tapping the ground. She's going to be too good. Oh, you can throw some food on. Oh, I have food. I'll throw food on the ground. Here we go. Do some mild distract. No, climb. All right. Good girl. No, climb. Good girl. No, climb. All right. This is how you would do it. All right. And I say, no, climb. You do not have to be harsh with the dog. All right. No, climb. Good girl. Repetition is very, very good. No, climb. Good girl. Repetition is what you're looking for. If the dog does not mess up, they cannot learn. No, climb. One of the biggest mistakes that trainers make is they try to get the dog to be obedient too quickly. All right? And no, climb. Then what happens is they do not learn concepts. No, climb. This is good. There's a treat right there, and this is perfect. Because through repetition, no, climb. I'm not going to let her reach it. Good girl. The punishment is not so aversive that she's scared to challenge it. But it's aversive enough that it's uncomfortable. She'd rather not have it. And she can learn a lesson here that no is followed, no, climb, by something uncomfortable. All right? Now, if you go all the way back to no, climb. I know I spoke about Conrad Most's books. This is something that he spoke about way back then, over 100 years ago, and was forgotten about. Now you see people trying to train dogs really quick. Even him, if you go way back then, he says, that after you teach a dog what a command means, when you start adding discipline, these aren't his exact words, he said that you're using low levels. It's like you climb. You need to teach them basically the concept of what punishment is and what discipline is and when it comes before you do like the type of discipline that they're not going to want to challenge. If not, no, climb. You're going to scare them. You're going to scare them. They're not going to understand the training. It's actually going to slow things down. No, climb. So I spend a lot of time normally in phase 2, all right? Because even though she's keep challenging it, she's picking up on this pattern, all right? And I'm going to be good to her, and I'm going to bring this treat to her, all right? Good girl, as a reward, to let her know another lesson, basically to trust me. No, climb. that I have her best interests in mind. But this is good. This is how a typical phase 2 lesson should look like. If I'm doing a lesson with someone and I said, did you work on the word no with your dog to teach the dog what it means? They'd be like, yeah, the dog did so great. She only broke like once. It's like, no, that's not a good lesson because the dog probably did not get enough repetition to figure it out. Remember, phase 2 is about teaching discipline. It's not about having a dog that's scared to challenge anything or scared to move. Let me try something else. I'm going to try like a sit with her. Darcy, free, good girl. And these treats keep her, when you're doing repetition, interested so she's not too bored of the training. Darcy, sit. Good girl. I'm going to give her a sit. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the sit. I'm not going to, no. Good girl. See what she did there? I said no, she fixed herself. A lot of that, if they figure out no, from what, no, good girl. If she knows, they pick up no on one exercise, it becomes easier on the other exercises. Good break, good break. No. Sit, sit. Good girl, good. That's how we do no. And you'll, no. Good girl, right? The condition punisher is awesome because it just saves the dog so much punishment when they make honest mistakes, and it's communication, right? Now I could tell her good girl, she's doing something right, and I could tell her no, that she's doing something wrong. Darcy, free. Good girl. All right, let's do it with the down now. Darcy, down, good girl. No, good girl. See, she could beat me to the punch now. I say no before the punishment. You need to work on this. I say, and you need them to break. If they do not break, you cannot teach them. You cannot teach them. Let's get her to break. Oops, no. Down. Good girl. Good. Say no correction. Darcy, climb. Good girl. And she's not scared to move, all right? Because I'm being fair to her. She could, if you're being fair to the dog, if they think punishment is like unpredictable and unfair and they're walking on eggshells, your training sessions, it's hard to get the dog to move to new behaviors. So we get her. I'll throw more food on the ground. No, climb. Good girl. It's a great exercise. She's not going to break as much, but no, climb. Now, for this exercise, what I would be looking for is I'd want her to break, but I want to see her go back on her own before I can correct her. She sees the treats here. No, climb, climb. Good girl. You a good girl. When I do things like this, I always give it to them. No, climb, climb. Good girl. The other thing she may need is this is technically some escape conditioning. Sometimes the dogs don't even know when they're getting that pump how to back right back up onto something like a climb board. You're a good girl. This is all phase 2. All right, no, climb. Oh no, she didn't get it. No, you never want them to really get the treat. Good girl. You good girl. Darcy, free. Darcy, free. Okay. Good. I'll let her go off and get them. All right. But that's doing the condition punisher. All right. They need to know that. Now the next concept is avoidance conditioning, and then I'll show you how we put this all together. Each one is focusing on something different. All right. Avoidance conditioning is the process. It means your training session revolves around teaching them how to avoid punishment. All right, how to avoid punishment. So you're basically focusing on the positive punishment aspects of things. All right, positive punishment is something is added to discourage a behavior. So we're typically adding punishment, some sort of aversive, to discourage disobedience. When I'm working on avoidance conditioning, what I'm doing is I'm usually going to give a bunch of commands, and I'm usually going to lay off of the higher value reward, which in her case is the treats. It's just her dog food. I'm just giving her her kibble. She works for it. But I am not, in escape conditioning, I'm purposely, right, punishing. I'm showing her the aversive and then showing her how to get rid of it. That's the whole purpose. I want to punish her. Avoidance is I want to see her completely avoiding it. So now this is where I'm going to make sure I say her name, I give her a command, and I may slightly, like I say, this is your control. The training environment is so important when you're training because you need the dog to mess up so you can teach them that if you don't listen on one command, then punishment happens. But it happens you could only use punishment that you taught them in escape conditioning so they do not panic. So for instance, I'll walk her around the room and she was responding to the down aversive, good girl, the climb, you know, and the sit. So I'm going to walk around. I may throw some treats on the floor. I may distract her. But I'm going to give her commands hoping that she will disobey so I can show her this is when it happens, all right? This is when it happens, and to see if she learns how to just avoid them. Now I'm still going to reward her. I'm still going to do phase 1. She's still going to get rewards, but you play around with your reward schedule and the competing motivators so you get a chance to teach the dog. Again, big point here that a lot of people miss is a good session does not mean if you do a session and the dog completely obeyed and you never had to punish the dog, that is not a good training session technically in phase 2. The whole point of the session is to make sure they experience when punishment happens so they learn how to avoid it. All right, so if you're given too much treats or too much rewards that they have no reason to disobey, they're not going to learn. Also, if you give too harsh of a correction that they're completely scared and they're just trying as hard as they can to do everything you want, they also did not learn a lesson, all right? You want that punishment to be just enough where it's uncomfortable that once you administer, they are going to do it, but they need to get the repetition, all right? So watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to work her through some exercises, all right? Darcy. And now I'm going to make sure I say her name first. All right, Darcy, sit, sit. Good girl. There, you're saying this is also how we get them. No, sit. Good girl. All right, and I could use the word no. So I'm walking around, and what I did is I didn't like stop and look at her like in the typical fashion if I'm holding a treat. I let her be a little distracted. I changed my position around here. Darcy, free. So that she's more likely to mess up. And then after I gave her one command, then the aversive that I taught her already in escape conditioning, I know it doesn't scare her, gets applied. I'll do it again. I'm going to walk her around. Let's see. I might change the camera angle so we get the whole room here. I have to move that. So here I'll go again. Darcy, sit, sit. Good girl, good girl. So I'm doing at the pace that I want her to learn. As soon as the word sit, Darcy free, comes out of my mouth, if I don't see her moving, then I apply the punishment. Like I said, you do not have to be harsh. There's a plastic star mark collar. I bet I could train her using my pinky. Let's see. Darcy, good girl, and I'll get the results that I want. We're going to do it again. Darcy, sit, sit. Good girl, all right? Using my pinky. You are a good girl. Darcy, free. Good girl. Good girl. So this would be, I'm going to do this sort of same pattern. Now I'm going to see, like I say, she's not totally scared, but it's just uncomfortable enough that she would rather skip that step of hearing me say sit again with it being paired with the punishment. So I'm going to walk her around. Let's say, Darcy, sit. Sit. Good girl. All right. Notice I'm giving her a chance every time. These are not automatic. When I originally learned the train, it was you'd give the command and you'd give an automatic. These are not automatic. I'm looking to see if her butt is dropping before I do it. Darcy, free. Everything's avoidance conditioning is fair. Darcy, sit. sit. Good girl. Now this would be considered a good lesson. Like I said, it is not, I do not want the dog reacting too quickly. I want her to get the repetition. Darcy, free. Phase 3, to jump ahead, is about the dog not challenging. Phase 2 is about teaching concepts. Darcy, sit. Good girl. You are good girl. You are good girl. Darcy, free. Good. I'll do the same thing. I'll try with the D-O-W-N. This one she should mess up on, I would think. Darcy, down. Good girl. You did it. You are good girl. Darcy, free. Good girl. All right, but this is how we get that crispy, those crispy commands. You teach it in phase 2, all right? You don't want to teach the dog to be really quick by using harsh corrections. You teach them the pace you want like this, nice and easy. Even where the climb over here, I want to go quicker on the climb, I'm going to give her the command, and if she doesn't do it, I'm going to pump right away to it. Darcy, climb. She's going to do it. Good girl. Darcy, sit. Good girl. Darcy, free. Good girl. Right? I'm always watching the dog's attitude. And you want to get the impression that they're enjoying training with you. And if I wasn't talking, I'd be much goofier with her. I'd free her up. I'd play in between. Let's say this one. I'll wait till she's a little distracted. She's looking off into space. Darcy, sit. Good girl. You say, you are so good. Darcy, down. Good girl. So I'm not even looking at her. We'll go back into the SIT now. Darcy, sit. Sit. Good girl. She's learning the game. I'm very predictable, right? I'm saying her name, gets her attention. I'm not going to just yell a command. You have to get her ready to pay attention for the different things I'm going to say. I'll go behind her. Darcy, down. Good girl. All right. Now she's going quick. It's because I was fair. Now if she messes up, she pops up, I'll use my conditioned punisher, right? This dog, she has no reason to challenge me. She's going to make honest mistakes. So if she messes up, I'll use the word N-O. No. Down. Good girl. See, that's how you do it. And she'll learn how to, no, down. Good girl. See? That's how you use the conditioned punisher. Then through repetition, you'll start saying no. You won't even have to slide. I'll say no, ideally, before I even make a movement. So she breaks. What I would want to see is if she breaks while I'm talking, I just say no, and she just goes back into the down. That's what we want. I'm on my back turned to her now. Darcy, sit. Sit. Good girl, all right? This is how you do it. Whoops. No. Sit. Good girl. Let's see. I'll be fancy. A point behind me. Darcy, climb. Climb. Good girl, all right? Everything you want them to know is, it's all, no, climb. When I would do in kennel training, climb, I spent the majority of my time doing phase 2, climb, doing phase 2 training. Good girl. No, climb. This is where the communication gets built, the trust, and you're still doing all the phase 1. Darcy, free. All right. Now, how this concept too applies even to things like heel. Right. I'll show you quick with heel. I'm going to change the camera a bit so I get more of this room. Let's see. All right. Right, so remember last stream we were doing heel and it was all just this, right? And this whole training session has just been one handful in my pocket. All right, so this was the heel with no punishment. Escape conditioning for this, right, is now that she's already in it, it is very easy. I mean, we'll go over the specifics of how to do heel, but she's already in the heel. So if I wanted to start escape conditioning, it starts when she's already in it. Now if I'm adding a correction, you see she's barely out of it, and I could add punishment to it. Heel, good girl. It's so much easier for them to learn if they start off in the heel, all right? And then you start adding the escape conditioning. All right. Then from there, you can make it, she was in position, right? Escape conditioning starts with them in position. Then if they seem okay with that, you could start doing it when they're a little bit out of position. All right. I'll pump and then I'll tell her heel and help her get into there. Good girl. All right. And this would be escape condition. I'm still going to give her treats. Heel. All right. Good girl. Good girl. Escape conditioning. All right. Condition punisher is the same concept. I mean, it really depends what you want to do for the training. I mean, technically, you can say if she goes out of position, you can say like no and then put her back, heel. But I use for condition punisher with the heel, I tend to use body language, different types of body language if they get out of position, which we'll go over until when we'll do a stream just on heel because it's more complicated. But I would usually like stop my foot. She's listening, and then if they didn't respond, then I would pump. All right? Because then they have to pay attention. You're a good girl. So I would stop, then pump if they didn't respond to that. But that becomes like a no, and then the pump. So then after a while you do that, she's going to stop, and she avoids punishment. You never want them to really get that far out of position. Darcy, free. All right? Then avoidance. With the heel, it really becomes that. It becomes you say her name, you say heel, and then if she doesn't go into position and stay there, the pumps happen, right? Darcy, heel. Good girl. She did it. You are a good girl. You are a good girl. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. See? That's the no. See, these are all the concepts of phase 2. All right? My leg is the no if she got out of position. And she's barely going to get corrected because she sees no, heel. Good girl. All right. Darcy, climb. Good girl. Good girl. The awesome thing about phase 2 is you teach the concepts in a couple of exercises and then they learn it. They pick up on it with the new exercises pretty easily. So even something like if they're barking or something, you want her to be quiet. Once you do like all this other obedience, they pick up on it. They're barking, you could, say quiet. And if they're not quiet, you do a little escape conditioning. You pump and say quiet, and they stop barking, and you say good girl. Then it's pretty easy. They start barking, you say her name and quiet, and she knows, oh, I hear my name, I hear the command. If they know what that word is, they know I could stop barking and I could completely avoid it. They can generalize with commands and pick up on new commands really, really, really easy. All right? But this is like an overview. This is just an overview of what phase 2 is about. Phase 2, I've always done phase 2 in phase 1, I do that's why, this was my training room that I always like to use because there's nothing going on down here. It's great for phase 1. I would start phase 2 and I could control the distractions. I bring them in. You need the dog to mess up. And then I would increase them into the point, once you reach the point where you feel like you have to be rough with the dog, or you're getting frustrated, that means it's time for phase 3, all right? If you keep building the distractions and you just hit the point where you can't do anymore, it's phase 3. But at phase 2, you need the dog to mess up. You need the dog, no, climb, all right? You need the dog to do these things. And it's enjoyable. You should be loving the dog during the whole thing. You're teaching them, you're the dog's teacher. Darcy, free. Good girl, all right? So this is basically intro to phase 2, all right? Phase 2 is not that complicated, the concepts. You just have to learn different types of escape conditioning for every type of exercise. And, it's just different mechanics. We're going to have to go over the mechanics, but the theory behind phase 2 is the same for anything that you really do. You plug phase 1 into any command, you plug phase 2 into any command. When you're polishing that stuff off and you don't want the dog to really challenge anymore, and we're going to use a more motivational level of punishment, they're not going to be scared by it, because if they don't like it, they completely know how to avoid it. And you could use minimum amount, and you'll see you use very minimum amount. Does anyone have any questions? Any questions on this? Let's see who we have, or want to see anything in particular. Do I have questions here? Catch up 3. Oh, sorry, Daryl. Daryl had to go. It's an emergency. Dave says, when you say she has no reason to challenge you, is there a reason you consider a dog would challenge? All right, yeah, so challenge, maybe, what I mean by challenge, meaning she does not have a reason to disobey my commands, all right? So you give a dog a command, and from their point of view, they're gonna react 100% according to the way that you taught them. So if I have done no phase 2, and I only taught her that if I give you a command, I have something good for you, but if you do not listen to my command, nothing happens. You could do whatever you'd rather be doing. She's not really like disobeying, like in the way that we think of it, right? Obedience is, the definition of obedience is authority, basically. Listening to someone or following the direction of someone because they have authority over you. If I'm telling her to do something and it's, if you do this, I will give you that. If you do not do it, you can do whatever you want. I'm mostly just like offering her a choice. I have something, do you want it? If not, not a big deal. Now, phase 2, we are starting to teach her that, all right, if you do it, I'll give you this. If you do not do it, I'm also going to do this, which is an aversive, all right? We're getting more into the operant conditioning cycle here. So when they challenge, it is about, in the beginning of phase 2, they don't know any better. That's what phase 2 is about. Like, they don't even know that you want to give them, that there is any consequence. Like, they're confused in the beginning. So that's why you have to give her this repetition, so until you have a feel that they understand what this is about. All right, that they understand what this is about. Then, when we say challenge, it means she chose the other motivator, right? It means, let me see, in phase 2, if I put a stake on the ground, even though she knows I'm going to pump her when she comes off, when I pump the star mark collar when she comes off, in her mind, it's a competing motivator. It's like, okay, is it worth jumping off and getting the pump if I may get the stake? If in her mind she thinks, yes, it's worth it, that's what it is. She challenged it, all right? She challenged it. But challenge, I don't like, I use the word, but I guess it's not the best word to use because it sounds almost like she's trying to like, be like spiteful or deceive me or get one off. I mean, she's just doing what she learned. It's like, oh, it's not that big deal, I'll try. Phase 3 is where we play around with the competing motivators, where it's like, okay, there's that. Do you want to try to take the pump or hear the no, see if you can get the treat before you some dogs are like, oh, I can break, I can disobey for a second, I'm going to hear the no and I can fix myself. There's all these little things that they'll do. But she's going to know what we taught her, really. And at this stage, she's going to challenge it. Because 1, she doesn't know any better, and 2, it's not a big deal. It's worth it, all right? And you can't blame her for that. It's just like us. There's, we're teenagers. It's like, all right, I'm going to sneak out at night. And if you have lenient parents, it'd be like, all right, if I get caught, I may get grounded for a weekend. But if I don't get caught, even if I do get caught, I'm going to like the best party of the year, and it's going to be worth it. So you got to think of it from that point of view. Let's see. Kim, you said because avoidance is slightly more technical and includes layers of distraction, competing motivation. Yep, it is important to utilize free more often in order to help the dog process the concept. Yeah, all right. So Kim, what that kind of brings us upon is when you're doing avoidance training can be you need to put just the right amount of stress on the dog where they want to learn, all right? Where they want to learn, right? Stress is good in dog training, but you got to do it the right way. So you need to relieve that pressure from the dog, and they actually get a chance to learn. Like, I'm not going to go around and go like sit down, sit down, sit down, like, you know, do it too quickly. You want to give her a chance to like, you know, to learn the lesson that just took place. And there are studies. I know there are studies about that animals learn quicker when you use aversives if you kind of give them a little break in between, and they get a chance to really think about it. But the best analogy, I don't know if I have it written anywhere on the site, is a steam engine. All right, so you take a steam engine, right, and in order for that thing to go forward, you need to put a certain amount of coal in the engine to create pressure, and that pressure is going to, you know, the pressure is going to build up and turn the gears, right? And it's going to relieve the pressure. It's going to, you know, it's going to relieve the pressure. So pressure is good, but if you don't put enough pressure in that steam engine, like if I'm doing this and what I'm doing is so like she doesn't care about it, it's not putting pressure in that steam engine. That steam engine is not going to move forward. Now, if I put too much coal in a steam engine beyond what it can really handle, it may seem like you're moving quicker, but what happens is you could blow that engine, right? What happens when you blow a steam engine, it takes longer. You have to actually go backwards, take it back to get repaired before you can go forward again. So if I start moving too quick and being too rough with her, what's going to happen? I'm going to break something, and she's not going to want to come in here and train, or she's going to be scared to move, and I'm not going to be able to get her to do as much repetition, or I'm going to get side effects. So that whole point is important. Like phase 2 is you need to put pressure just enough for them to learn and go forward, but not so much to break it. Once they understand and we're in phase 3, you'll see we could do higher levels and we're not going to break the engine, all right? But even there you can break the engine. But right here is we're starting off slow. We're starting off slow with her. So, but that's good. You know, I will do some fast pace, then you give her a break. You know, you do 2 or 3, you give her a break, and you will see. And that's the kind of thing that does come with experience. Like, you'll see the dog learn something, and that's all you're looking for in a session. Sometimes it seems like they didn't really learn anything, and then you take the dog out the next session, and they're picking it up, all right? But don't break the engine, all right? It's always better to use a little less pressure and then turn it up than to throw too much in that engine and you can't get it out. You can't get it out of the fire after that, all right? You can't go. It's not as easy to go backwards. Is any age too old for training? No, Michael, definitely not. I've trained dogs that are like 12 years old. The biggest issue is health. You know, they got to be healthy enough to do what you're asking, their joints and stuff like that. In my experience, older dogs have better concentration, you know, and they usually have like a little more sense. And older dogs, I found, I mean, there's some challenges to them. Sometimes they have like bad habits, but I've always had a good time training older dogs. You know, they seem to just like have a little more like common sense, or they just understand people better, and they picked up on, you know, some of our little mannerisms that make it easier for us to train them. I've always enjoyed training older dogs. It's only a problem when it's a health issue. It's like stiff joints and stuff like that. And you know, the older dogs too, you can enjoy the training the same exact way. Kim says, can you please elaborate the free command and any essential guidelines for the reset? Oh, good. Okay, Kim. All right. So this comes into command structure. All right. And I'll show you. I'll go through the command structure chart. All right. The whole dog's, when you're with the dog, your interaction, everything gets divided by the dog's name. All right. The name is letting the dog know when there's been a change of what you expect from them. So the last thing I told her probably is the word you're welcome, Michael, is the word free. So free means you can do whatever you want. You know, if she happens to be on a leash, you can do whatever you want as long as you stay on a loose leash, all right? If she's not on the leash, you can do whatever you want besides what you learned through habitation, you know, from housebreaking. But right now, she's on a free, so she can do whatever she wants. If she knows she's on a 6-foot leash, there's going to be, you know, the proper aversive to get her back over here. But as long as she's here, she's a good girl, all right? But now everything else, watch, everything's divided by her name. And I'll show you a spot where I wrote more about that. Watch, so if I say her name, Darcy, climb, good girl, all right? Since Darcy was the last thing that I told her, she has to stay on here basically forever. And I can have a conversation and she doesn't have to pay attention to me again. Matter of fact, I can say heel, I could say down, I could say come. She doesn't have to pay attention to it. She doesn't have to obey it. I could shout down, all right? She doesn't have to listen, all right? Because she only has to listen for one thing. It's just her name, all right? It's just her name. No, climb, good girl, all right? She only has to listen for her name. Then that means there's a change. So I could say sit, down, come, free. But if I say Darcy, free, she can get off, even though she didn't, right? But Darcy, free, good girl, all right? Now she's free. She's free from a command, all right? There's not as much pressure, all right? But now I say Darcy, sit, good girl, all right? She has to sit forever. I could have a conversation until she hears her name. And the name is something that a lot of trainers are not using because they're stuck in competition mode. In competition, they usually don't say the name, right? Or if they do say the name, it has to be, watch it, so I'm talking, I could say the word down, but I can now, Darcy, down, good girl. The name gets the dog's attention. And if you have multiple dogs, you can get the attention of multiple dogs, all right? But then I say, Darcy, free, good girl. She could do whatever she wants. She wants a treat, though, so. All right, so free, she hears her name, free is telling her the next thing that she could do. Free, like everything after her name is like right here, if I tell her, Darcy, sit, good girl, I drop this, I'll drop some treats on the floor, I'll put it over here, sit, she has to stay in the sit. But I can say her name and sit, right? I could say her name and use the word okay, right? Darcy, okay, good girl. And I point, she could even break the leash manners for okay if I'm pointing to something. Everything has a meaning. It's all what you taught the dog. But it's divided by her name. Her whole life is divided by her name. I don't ever say her name for no reason at all. But then free, when she's on a free, Darcy, good girl. When she's on a free, she could do whatever she wants, usually again, unless she's on a leash, until she hears her name again, all right? But free is a good thing because she could really has a lot of leniency there. Good girl, all right? I'll show you the chart over here. Now this is where the chart comes into play. Let's see. We'll go over here. That's here, all right? This is command structure chart. This will start making sense. This is going to come together. Like, so I'm giving like an overview of phase 2. But here, what do we got here? Oh, awesome. Oh, thanks. Yeah. This right here, say the dog's name. You give a command or free. All right. Free, I was going to make this chart so free is kind of like a sort of a spin-off, but not really. You know, but right here, you say the dog's name, and then it's whatever they're supposed to be doing. All right, did the dog obey? Free is the only thing where they really don't have to obey technically, right? But if the dog does obey, we praise them, right? We mark it. That's our phase 1. We're building all these little pieces here. We built this. This is our condition reinforcer, all right? This is our praise. It means a good thing. And then we're going to variably reward it, right? We learned that in phase 1. Did they remain doing that until if they did, you can go say their name again, and then you start somewhere else, all right? Say a different command. If they don't obey, if they don't even try, did the dog obey? No. Did the dog try? I repeat it with the correction. If the dog did obey, if the dog didn't obey, no. Did they at least try? Then I use the word no. All right? Did the dog obey? If they still didn't obey, but they tried, I'm going to say no again. All right? If they start doing different things and trying, I'll just say the word no unless they don't try. And then once they actually try and they get it right, they go back to praise. But if they don't try, that's the only time we give a punishment. All right? But everything is a flow chart. The dog's in a command. Did they stay? No. Did they try? Yes. We say the word no. There's a flow chart here. But the more you go through the training, it starts to make sense. You always try to be as technical as possible with the dogs. As you look at it and you think to yourself, all right, dogs love things being predictable. When you see, matter of fact, when I do like group classes, that's what I would do. We would have contests to see who is the most technical. I would tell the clients, I'll give them a string of 3 things to do. I'll say, walk across I'll actually tell them, we would do I'll say, give me 4 different commands. And if I said, it does not matter if the dog obeys. What matters is how you react. So I would score the dog and I would score the handler. So I would have scoreboards for everyone. And if the dog did everything on one command, the dog got points. If the owner reacted the right way, including reacting the right way when the dog obeys, praise in the right time, they would get points. If the dog obeyed and the owner did bad command structure, the owner would not get a point. If the dog disobeyed, but the owner used the right command structure, the owner got a point. And what you would see is the owners that use the right command structure, they will end up having dogs that just don't disobey. And they all listen on one word. The owners, you'll see that have bad command structure, their dogs are going to have a hard time doing things on one word. They're going to break more because their owners are harder to understand. They're unpredictable. All right? The best thing you can do for a dog is being very predictable and very, very technical. And you'll see that. Sometimes I posted a video of Josh recently from Fearless Canine on my Facebook page. He's doing some protection training with this pit bull that he has. And I praised him for his command structure. The whole reason the dog was obeying so well and stopping and this and that was because Josh has really good command structure. He's super technical. So it's clear as a bell to the dog what he's telling him to do. So then if you have the right relationship with the right dog and you taught them all the steps, it'll make sense on paper why the dog will obey you. If the dog is not obeying you, you'll know exactly what to tweak. And that's what you're doing, especially when you're supervising other people, training your dogs. You have to ask, what is the problem here? And you have to troubleshoot it. And sometimes it is, you're judging the punishment, you're the competing motivators. But that's why, one of my signs fell off. It's over there. But that's why on the wall I have timing, motivation, consistency. And that is something that I picked up on, even though I don't do a lot of my training anymore like I did at Tom Rose School when I went there. It's completely different. Those 3 words did stick with me from over there, timing, motivation, consistency. And what that basically means is timing is number 1. If your timing, meaning your command structure, if that is not right, you do not even want to begin to troubleshoot motivation, meaning is your punishment motivational enough or even is your reinforcement motivational enough? Because that will not matter if your timing is wrong, all right? You always have to make sure the timing is right first. So when you're working with someone and they have a treat, before you say, oh, that treat isn't motivational enough, are they even communicating to the dog the right way, all right? So it's always timing first, then it's motivation, and then, of course, then you're going to be consistent, all right? You're going to be consistent with what you found is working for the dog, with the timing and the motivation for the different situations. But you always go in that order, and that was so important. That's why I always have it on my wall, all right? Timing, motivation, consistency. My other wall, I always had knowledge, which is our orthology, right? You always need to know your base. You need to understand that dog, all right? And then respect. We need to respect that dog. And patience. We go nice and slow, all right? We go nice and slow with the dog. Slower is quicker, all right? Someone may have been able to demonstrate that dog in 2 weeks in a 2-week program, but in reality, 6 weeks later, when the dog you were working with is doing everything off leash and happy with distractions, getting less punishment and everything, that dog 6 weeks later is going to be a mess still compared to what you have the other dog. You know, so it's knowledge, respect, patience, time and motivation, consistency. Let's see. Do we have any other? What do I do here? You got any other questions? Or did I answer them? Oh, let's see what we got. Yeah, command structure. Dave says, do you ever incorporate a nickname as a way to communicate with the dog to know nothing is expected? To keep yes. To keep the name for commands from losing its effectiveness. Examples, they are alerting on something and you use the nickname to let them know you are aware or what it is. Yeah, so I use, that's an excellent question, Dave. Yeah, I use nicknames all the time. My nicknames, I call like Orfeo, bad boy, all right? Affectionately, you know, or puppy, you know. It's funny, it's like two opposite things of what he is. He's definitely not a puppy, and he is a good boy. I'm like, who's that? Like, bad boy, get over here. Puppy, get over here, puppy. When I just like don't expect anything from the dog, I use nicknames. And the dogs are smart. They know it. You know, they totally know it, all right? Yeah, buddy. I call her bad girl, my bad girl all the time, and she is a bad girl. You are a bad girl. No, she's a good girl. We love you. I love you. Yeah, so nicknames, good. Kim says command structure is so relevant for communication. Good. Every day we search our dogs, and command structure is definitely overlooked and absolutely affects the performance of the team. Yes, yeah, definitely, Kim. Command structure is everything, especially with working dogs. You know, I do it when I do, if I do a search dog or I'm doing the scent class, even when it's time to search, that dog needs to know, because I have the dogs, all the dogs were trained in obedience. They hear their name and I say search, they know, oh, now I can go just zip out on the end of that leash and I'm going to take the lead. Or if for everything, even tracking, I give the command and then I say track. And then they know it's clear. They don't have to be hesitant, like, am I allowed to? Do I not have to? You know, some dogs, you know, they're smart. They figure things out on their own. They're like, all right, the harness is on me. I guess I'm supposed to be tracking. But if your command structure is good, like, it just makes things so much clearer, and they do it so much more confidently. And that's with anything with the dog. You know, when it's time to bite the dog, you know, to bite and stuff like that. I'll give you an example of protection training dogs or police dogs, the call-off command, all right? I know a lot of trainers and police officers, like, they don't have good command structure, and they want to send the dog to bite, and then they have to teach a dog a call-off command, where when they're almost there, 3/4 of the way there, they have to give a command and the dog has to stop. If command structure is not good, you know, they send the dog and then they just get a random command out of somewhere, and they get punished, they're going to be hesitant getting sent back out on bites. They're not going to go as quick. If the dog hears their name, if they're running and they hear their name and they know, okay, I have a chance to pay attention, they're not going to just hear a sound and like stop and be like, oh, I don't want to mess up, all right? The name, and you'll see, actually, if you go over here for an explanation, the name is the most, just the name. I mean, the command structure, the whole command structure itself is overlooked, but even just the name is so important. And if you go over, let's see. Rough. If you go over to knowledge base, and it's going slow, and you put on command structure in the knowledge base, command structure chart. This is incomplete. This is like something in progress. I want to finish it. I focus the name. All of this is dedicated to the name. How important it is, you know. So, you know, the name is so important. And it talks about command structure, but command structure is a big topic. And that's, once trainers realize how important that command structure is, like, it makes a big difference on the confidence of the dog. There's so many errors the dogs make just from poor command structure. Tons of them. Like forgetting to, let me see, Darcy, good girl. All right, if I tell Darcy, climb, if I don't tell her good girl, she may just walk off, or she'd be like, is that what I was supposed to do? I said, Darcy, free. Watch, I'll tell her to down, but I won't tell her good girl. If I just say down, she might do it because I'm looking right at her, but if I don't say good girl, right? Some people just say down, and they don't even say anything. And then she's like, what the hell? All right? But you need good girl. You're a good girl. All right? Darcy, sit. Good girl. They're much more likely to get it when you hear their name, right? And I don't say, Darcy, sit. It's a pause, just like you talk to someone, all right? Darcy, down. Good girl, all right? Darcy, sit. Now, that would be jumping the gun, right? You wouldn't want a dog to do that, right? So that I would say no, because what if I wanted her to go run or do something like that? And that's the other thing. It's very important when we get with command structures. You do not want the dog guessing on their name, all right? So if I say Darcy, down, good girl. Watch, if I know she'll break, well, it says Darcy, sit. Good girl, right? That was better. She didn't get a reward when she jumped the gun. But you don't want a dog jumping the gun and guessing what you're going to say. But that happens all the time when people don't use the name correctly, or they say the name and the command as one word. Like they do if in competition, if you use the name, it has to be like one word. You'd have to say like Darcy down. All right? Darcy sit. Darcy down. Good girl. Darcy free. Good girl. Poor dog. And you'll see, that'll make them. Now, if I say Darcy, she's going to hop up again. All right? Before I say the word. All right? You want to get that pause in there. I'm sorry, you're being like a guinea pig. You are such a good sport. All right. Whoops. Darcy off. All right. Let's see. Michael says, we just had a police dog killed while biting in a pursuit. The guy got bit, then he shot the dog. Then the police shot the guy 10 times and killed him. I think they did not use a call-off command. Did they? Oh, yeah, they probably, yeah, so police dogs, like a lot of them are, their obedience in the field is so poor. You know, they're situational. The dog knows it's time to bite. They just send the dog. You know, a lot of these dogs, they don't out unless they get choked off. They don't. I've been at a bunch of police seminars now, and a lot of times their obedience is based off of what they need to pass a certification, which is very similar almost to, like, at least the ones around here, is almost like a sport certification. You know, they go and pattern train them on a plain grass field, and they'll get them to just do the call off, like, on that field and everything, and then like, and the dogs aren't really good in the field. When they're trained this way with good command structure and good communication, the dogs are so much easier to handle. The police officers that I gave a dog to and learned to handle this way, it was like night and day when they were handling the dog, including outing the dogs too, and just having general control over them. It's you know, that it's all about communication. And the good thing about it is you actually, even when the training session is done, you just handle the dog exactly how you were training the dog. You don't have to like do all this crazy stuff to get the dog to do something a couple of times on a training field. You're training for real life. So the difference is it's not fast paced anymore, but I'm gonna just use it and just reward her. So I'm just hanging out with her, and I want her to come closer to me. Everything's the same. I'm gonna do like a come. I do it on a 6-foot leash. Right, it's the same thing. If she doesn't come, I'm going to pump on the 6-foot leash, right? Darcy, come. If she doesn't, come. Good girl, and I'm going to praise her, all right? Now, this is just, I'll do this everyday life. So if I want her to come quicker, let's see, Darcy, free. Darcy, come. Come. Good girl. It's the same thing, all right? I'm just going to get her closer. I'm doing with a 6-foot leash. I'm just doing little pumps. Darcy, free. I'll do quick pace now. Darcy, come. Good girl. She's going to turn around. She's ready to do avoidance conditioning for me. Good girl. Now, I gave her 2 corrections for not whipping around and coming. You know, that could be a training session. But now when I'm on the 6-foot leash, if I want her to come, it doesn't matter if I'm training. It's when I tell her come, at least if she's on a 6-foot leash. If she doesn't come quick, I'm still going to do it. But it's just one's, you know, one here, one here. All right, Darcy, come. Good girl. And she got closer to me. So it's just what I'm going to do. I'm prepared. But I'm also prepared to reward her and give her love. So my training sessions and hanging out with her, there's not much of a difference. Besides, I have a goal when I'm doing the training session with the dog, right? I'm not doing a training session. I want her to relax. So Darcy, down. Good girl, all right? I marked it. Good girl. I'm going to give her some love. Let her know she made me happy, all right? And I'm handling her just like how I'm training her. And it's easy. It's easy peasy. All right? And this is just, you know, and it's life is training. The training sessions are just goal orientated. Darcy, free. Good girl. She wants to go on the table because that's where your treats are. You want somebody, Darcy, sit. You are a good girl. All right, what else we got here? We got Dave's typing. Let's see what we got. Dude, he's feeling self-conscious about her camera work. I know, it's a phone. It's an app on my phone. You touch it the wrong way. And you know what, Kim? You said great training, Mike. Awesome dog. This is the truth. I don't train this dog. She goes to class. Like whatever she's doing is like. The students at school this year, they don't know anything. It was just Cameron. It's when you're training the right way, it almost looks like it makes everything look easy. That's really the truth. If you communicate with the dog, by taking your time, you're going quicker. You're actually going quicker with the dog. It looks like the dog has been getting trained for a long time. May I ask a question on training a canine body language, training a canine body language blind dog, or ask inform? Yeah, shoot. Yeah, just type it out, Dave. Yeah, but this is phase 2. Yeah, this is phase 2 training. Now remember, this is a big subject. This is just an overview. Like anyone that's watching this, I'm going to keep streaming. You know, I'm going to keep streaming in this series until I feel like I've kind of exhausted like what is not necessarily inside of like the training videos, or you can't get from the training videos. Like if you watch this video and then you watch like the Teresa videos, or even you watch the old prong collar videos, like where I'm in the dog outfit and stuff, it's going to make more sense. It's just going to make more sense to everybody, like why we're doing each little thing. All right. If anyone else has any questions, just let me know. I'll see what Dave's question. You go, girl. But training, like I said, training should be enjoyable. I see nowadays, like I see so many angry trainers out there. Like they actually seem angry when they're training the dogs. They're angry. I go like on my Facebook feed because I'm friends with a lot of dog trainers, and I try to keep my mouth shut because they don't know any better. But a lot of them, when I started, this is the truth how I feel. Like when I first started training, it was like, yeah, it was still a mess. It's always been a mess for the most part. But when I started using, say, e-collars, to me it was an advanced tool that I used. No one really showed me how to use it. I was kind of training, you know, like to me, the e-collar was a polishing off tool. Like after you taught your dog what things meant and you rewarded the dog and you taught them rules. And then I was even doing off-leash training without it, using light lines and everything else. Then I polished off with like an e-collar. Now, e-collar has become like amateur training. Like I see people starting with e-collars and they're angry because they're trying to justify everything that they're doing. You know, they're telling dogs, if this, you know, you've heard it before. There's all this justification and they almost sound angry. Angry explaining why they're using it, angry at the dog, like this dog's gotten away with stuff for too long, not anymore. We're going to show him. He learned really quick, where I don't even know if people enjoy training like that, right? Like if you actually, to me, the process is the best part. Like the training process of teaching the dog, it's a bonding experience. And like when I get to be alone training a dog, like I'm having so much fun with them. Because even in between these little things, you free the dog up, you love them. Let's see. Hey, Chris, there you are. Haven't heard from you in a while. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. Let's see what Dave says. Latest dog ignores or doesn't recognize cutoff signals or proper canine introductions. I've been using the vibration on my collar and giving voice commands to keep him from pushing the others to the point of fighting. Is there a better way to go about it? Also using obedience before he can engage. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, so Dave, what you're probably dealing with is probably more like the dog's own temperament or traits, where how the dog reacts with the other dog. So if you have like a dog that like, yeah, does not, you know, is interacting with another dog, and for whatever reason, it is causing a problem, right? It's causing a problem. It doesn't matter what problem it is. If to you it is causing a problem, you use obedience the same way a parent would with the kid, where you just tell them to leave that dog alone. Sometimes if dogs just don't pair up right, you just don't let them interact with each other. Or if you have one that just is not going to interact with correctly with another dog, I do a leave it command, which just means disengage. And a leave it command, it's like every other command. It means you do that forever until you're told otherwise. So if I tell a dog to leave it, I'll show you with her on the floor, you know, I started even with treats. Like if I drop these treats on the floor, and I haven't taught her really like a phase 1 leave it, but even like a phase 1 leave it would just be, I wouldn't add a correction. I would just have, I mean, Teresa does it a different way on the videos. There's different ways to do about it. But a leave it is forever, right? So I'll add the pump because she knows it to make it easier. But I'll throw these on the floor. I go, Darcy, leave it. Now there's some under, there's over there. Leave it is forever. It's leave it. If she breaks, I'm just going to say leave it. It's like if I told her sit. It's forever. So it doesn't matter. Even if I say Darcy free, leave it, it's still leave it. That's leave it forever. So if you have a dog and he's in an area where there's this other dog he doesn't like, you say your dog's name and you do leave, you got to teach a leave it command. I mean, don't engage with that dog. That's it. Now she can do everything else, but forever that's leave it. You can counter a leave it with okay. Okay is you can engage forever until I tell you otherwise. And I use the same thing for like dogs that may be aggressive towards people. You know, so I can tell her, Darcy, okay, good girl. And I'll mark it. I'll tell her good girl so she knows it's okay. Now she can engage with all this stuff on the floor forever. I could keep dropping stuff. Now, this is how easy obedience is. It's like, I did not really I never told her leave it. But once they start like learning like once you start talking to them like exact, and you do it in an environment that's not that hard for them to figure out, and you start with like lower caliber sort of things that don't work them up that much, like then maybe I'll play with a toy then throw it on the floor and say leave it, you know, and then okay. Then you can do like a dog or something. And it may, once you feel like you're being rough with the dog, it just means, I say you work in phase 2, lower level things, and then we move into phase 3. But now at any point again, I could do a leave it, I could do a leave it again, right? She doesn't know, this is how I'll teach her. I'll do these, and now it's gonna be Darcy, leave it, leave it. That's avoidance training, all right? And she's already, and I could walk her around. Darcy, free. Leave it. I'm going to walk her around. She goes to it. I leave it. I just do a pump, leave it. So I want to know, even if I'm walking around, we're hanging out, she just can't touch it anymore. Leash handling is important, right? Because if your leash handling isn't good, you can't communicate to her, leave it, at just that right. You're being slick with your paw. All right, so she's just not allowed to have it. But you know, repetition with this exercise, she'll learn that this is just the way it is, and she'll forget about it, all right? And you could do the same thing with a dog. A dog doesn't match up good. It's like, all right, leave it. You're around your nemesis, just name, leave it. Leave that dog alone. And I used to do that. I used to do a class with a bunch of, I don't do like those like forced socialization things, trying to get dogs to get along that really have no reason to hang out with each other. My classes where I would just, the dogs that didn't get along, I would teach the owners how to have their dogs just leave the dogs alone, to ignore each other. And that was really it. Darcy, okay. Good girl. You are a good girl. Yes, you are. Let's see. Oh, good. I'm glad you like it, Chris. I like this too. I like interacting with you guys. Kim says, would a slip lead should be suitable for phase 2? I really like how the pumps translate well. Yeah, so I use, yeah, you can, this training, like I said, it is meant, it's not necessarily meant for everyone to do exactly what I do. It's to get you to understand the process, you know, and depending, like some places, all forms of prong collars are banned, all right? So you can do a slip loop. You know, the slip loop would be pressure, and it's silly, right? Because the prong collars are actually, I use them for safety. I don't use slip loops because I don't think that they're safe. I mean, they can be safe if you're very careful with them, but you could do it with a slip loop. But I like to do the pumps because you see, when I do phase 3, I actually pump the nick at the same time when I pair it. So it translates really, really easy. So that's why I do the pumps. But I say this is meant for any trainer could kind of take this foundation and modify it using different concepts. You know, everything I do is because I honestly feel it works the best. But, you know, can you do pressure with a, you know, with a star mark collar? Yeah, you know, but I like to use pressure for resistance training, right? Because it triggers their opposition reflex. So if I have a dog, if I have her and she really wants, and you'll see these in like the phase 2 videos, if I want to help her to hold that sit and drop the treats, I can actually pull a little in that direction, and that triggers the opposition reflex if you did not teach them to give in to that pressure, and then I could praise her and it actually helps her. Right? Some trainers, right, they do pressure and the dog has to break it. I do pressure, and I do it to actually, to prompt their natural reflex to help them when they're distracted. It helps them hold their stay. And then I could use it when I'm not looking at the dog, but I want to know she's still there. I could put a little pressure, I know she didn't break. Darcy, okay, good girl. Look how easy she picked that up. You're pretty smart. You're pretty smart. You know that? Too smart. You too smart. Yeah, but you can use anything. Phase 2, you can use, you can use, there's the halty collars, you can use, the good videos to watch, especially after this, is watch Teresa's halty phase 2 collars. They're kind of old, and it's not going to be exactly, you know, how everything I'm saying here, but it's like 95% the same, and you'll see how a completely different tool applies to the same concepts. Is opposition reflex while in command, phase 2? Yeah, I usually teach that in phase 2. I use that in phase 2. It's like a little trick. It's not good. You can't do it if someone's going to do pressure type of exercises. But yeah, I usually do that in phase 2 training. I don't even consider it like a punishment. So I don't really see, but in phase 2 it works good because you can quickly help the dog back into position. Watch this. This is the trick with the resistance training. Watch this. Darcy, climb. Good girl. Because notice how she kept breaking here. The trick, and this is a leash handling. You watch the Leash Ninja videos. The Leash Ninja video gives you an idea. But I'll have my back hand, this hand is palm up. All right, this hand is palm up. And this hand on the leash, I actually try to pull the dog a little bit with the hand that's holding the leash. My palm up one is the one, if they break, slides back and helps. So you could be quick. But I start off real close. Then if she breaks, you just go like that. You could be super quick. You are so good. I don't do too much pressure to like hurt her. It helps them, right? And this is so cool because I could like turn my back to her. I could feel that she's there. I could totally feel that she's there. If she breaks, you just boop. I'm gonna do everything. I'll do, I could go like this and then, palm up, slide. This is great for everyday like leash hand. This is good. I don't have to look at her anymore. It just helps. It gets people used to using all their senses with the dogs. I could feel that pressure break. I could cheat and look at me in the video too. But this is what we do. And this is something typical I do in the group classes. I put your dog in a command and come out here. Make sure the dog, use feel. The training, when you do it the right way, you can use feel. I could do my commands. That escape conditioning, since it's gentle enough, all right? You can use even these pumps in all different directions. See, this is to remain, but she knows the pump means to move. Even the little bit that I've done, I could probably easily get her to come off with a pump. Let's see. If not, Darcy, free. Good girl. I give her. But I can very easily do nonverbals. I could put her in a sit with a pump and then get her to stay there by putting pressure. All right? Same thing. Like a pump, she'll do it down even without the command. This pressure helps her stay. All right? It's just using Mother Nature. You always go with Mother Nature, and it makes it easy for the dog. I'll get her to go back into the sit with a pump. And then we go like that. Now, the more communication, the better, obviously. I'm going to go love her. That's a primary reinforcer, right? But I could have marked it with a good girl, all right? So I could pump and then love her, right? This is just kind of using concept. You could use everything. You don't have to use the marking. You could go right to what she really wants anyway. And she's Darcy, free. Darcy, free. Good stuff, Mike. I remember all that from lessons. Got to hit the hay. Had a great night. Thanks. Okay. All right. I guess I'll get going too, because I'm gonna be going on 2. Well, actually, I started late. Let's go all night. All right. Okay. All right. So, anyone have any other questions? If there is any more questions, I guess I'll hit off the stream so the replay isn't too long, and we could continue. I'm gonna be back. I'll be back Wednesday night, and there's a lot of stuff that we can still hit on. All right. All right. Everyone, have a good night. As always, love interacting with you guys. And thanks, Dave. Great questions. It's only a good stream when I have great questions. You give me some good ones. Thanks. Oh, you're welcome. Oh, I have a question. Oh, Chris, you have a question above? I missed it. Oh, let me check. Sorry. Oh, there we go. How would you go about socializing a young male with other dogs? I find it difficult to find suitable, mature dogs around my area. I would say I would go back to the ethology. Chris, did you start off with the earlier streams? Over here? Let's see. If we go, I don't know if you just jumped on. So you have the live classroom, and, and these are all the past streams. I think a lot of this is covered here. And, you know, will be very helpful to you because sometimes it's just not natural, you know, for certain dogs. Like if you have a young male, oh, I haven't yet, I turned this, oh, okay. Yeah, you could always, you'll see, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, the streams were on like, I don't know, it's like the 18th one. You'll probably have to sit down for like 24 hours straight to go through all of them. But you can play me at twice speed, and you know, since I talk kind of slow, you know, it's going to be good. But I think starting from the beginning would be very helpful. I'd be very helpful. You know, because socialization is, you got to remember, like dogs. In today's day and age, we kind of expect certain things from dogs, right? Like when I was, let me put me back on here. What happens is, oh, I turned this on, it's 24 hours. Yeah, what happens is, you know, like I know when I was growing up, I don't ever remember any dog parks or anything like that. It's like we had our dogs, and it was kind of normal for dogs to not necessarily get along with other dogs, you know, when they were older, especially certain breeds, and if it was like same sex and stuff like that, you know. But now there's dog parks and things like that, and it's a different culture. But you gotta understand, you know, the individual temperament of the dog that you have, you know. And some dogs just do better. Certain breeds and temperaments just they are meant to stay more juvenile and more social. Other ones are not, and it's actually normal, you know. So sometimes just knowing that it's not normal for all dogs, and there's no reason necessarily for us to have our dogs playing like with other dogs, especially when they get older. It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't mean that you can't do it, but you just want to make sure you don't set your dog up for failure, right? That's, you got to be careful. But I would start at the beginning. Oh yeah, it is big time changed, right, Dave? Yeah, there was, you know, and you got to know the difference too. That's why I'm going to start from the beginning between like fear aggression and dominance aggression and territorial aggression. You know, certain things will be normal, certain things will be abnormal, but that's where you got to start off with, you know. So I want you to understand. I think that question you could answer is best answered yourself by going, you know, by going through it, because there's so much to learn with the temperaments. That's where the base is. You know, that's where the base is. And then the obedience comes into play to control, because you may think, all right, this situation is not going to be a good situation for my dog, so if I'm in it, I'll just control him with obedience. I'll tell him to leave that particular dog alone. All right. Yeah, start it from the beginning. It's a lot. I think you'll like it. My first streams get cut off a lot. They're fuzzier. The video quality isn't as good because I was playing around with it. But if you stick with it, you'll see. I think it'll help everything come together for you. Start at the beginning. Start at the beginning for sure. It'll be very helpful. All right. What do you want? What do you want? You done? Darcy said she's done. You want to hit the... All right, so Darcy's going to hit the... let's see. You got to click. You got to click the button for me. Here's the mouse. Let's see. Wait, let's see if I train her to use the mouse. I'm going to prompt her to use... She's going to be my controller. This is the mouse. All right, everyone have a good night. I'll see you guys Wednesday night, all right? Wednesday night.